Have you started?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome everyone to the 5th virtual conference by Restaurant India. Today's discussion will revolve around reopening of restaurant and food safety amidst and aftermath of COVID-19. My name is Preetima Bhardwaj, Project Head Webinar Series at Franchise India. As we celebrate World Food Safety Day today, it reminds us further of the need to have safer and healthy food, to have a disease-free life. This day is also an opportunity to promote awareness about how to keep our food supply safe. The 5-point call to action as per WHO is: ensure the food is safe, grow it safe, keep it safe, eat it safe, team up for safety. Food safety is a shared responsibility. Also, when restaurants and hotels are likely to open tomorrow, keeping in view the guidelines issued by the government, it becomes even more important. Shared responsibility not only for the food operators, but all of us as individuals as well. Food safety is everyone's business. Let me quickly start by laying off the ground rules for our attendees today. This discussion will go on for about 2.5 hours. Each session will be followed by Q&A session. If you have any questions during the course of the discussion, you can post them through the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. Mention in your question if it is directed at any specific panelist. We will take up questions post the panel discussion. Please participate in the poll during the webinar. We would like to request the attendees to keep the questions within the scope of discussion here today. We also encourage all our attendees to join our social handles of Restaurant India to get continuous updates on the industry. On Twitter, we are called Indian Rest Kong. On Instagram, we are restaurant.india. And on LinkedIn, you can find us by the name of Restaurant India. Moving on to our first keynote session of the day. This session will be for approximately 30 minutes. The topic for this session is how consolidation and collaboration for restaurant could be the right survival and sustainable strategy in food service business. Our keynote speaker for the session is Mr. Gaurav Maurya, Chairman, Franchise India Group. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Pratima, for a lovely introduction. Welcome, friends. Welcome to this special edition of Restaurant India. This edition is very timely positioned. Why? Because one side we are opening the restaurants from tomorrow, as it looks like, unless and until we have some surprise news coming. So a lot of people are preparing on that. And second, it's a great day to start because it's a World Food Safety Day. And everywhere, the biggest concern for restaurants, for any other businesses, is all about safety for the people who work in these businesses, which is first, I think so, and then safety for the consumers they actually look after. So I have a very long journey with the restaurant industry. While at Franchise India, we're more known for franchising, but 35% of our business really came always from restaurant businesses. And I've done in restaurant all capacities. I've been running my own restaurants. So we start first restaurant I invested was in 2004. And I have been investor into restaurant businesses and 70% failed and 30% survived. So I have a lot of history of failing restaurants. And I've also been advisor to many of international chains which have come to India. A lot of them have been successful, some of them not been so successful. So in net, I think I have seen more negative in this whole industry to say what you should not do, and more than what we would see. But I've also been fortunate enough to work with a lot of successful restaurant operators, entrepreneurs, and so forth. And I've been last particularly 75 days talking to each one of them, talking on what is happening in their business, what do they expect, really what is going to happen in their businesses and so on and so forth. So one thing I really come down to point where there is no definite answer at this stage. We are still in the middle of all that going on. When this lockdown started, there were limited cases. Now we have cases which have gone to the next level, and we are opening up. And we are opening up to what we call the new normal. And people really don't know what is the new normal, how it needs to be done. Well, sitting at home, in our safety, I call it bunkers. We all started thinking that the world might change And some are saying, like I've been saying, that world would not change. The world would come back as it used to be, because this is our civilization history. It's not going to change because we did 60 days. And there are a lot of people who came with all the answers, and they say 60 days you do something, it will become your change cycle. If you do 90 days, it become your lifestyle. A lot of things we have heard. Things would happen, but I've walked 60 days, and I'm not walking for the last 1 week, so it's not worked with me. So a lot of things and changes are not permanent. And I can tell you, the first starting point today, eating out is a very definite human need. Socialization is a definite human need, and this is not going to change. So if all the restaurant operators were sitting there and nervous, my first message to you is that whenever you start opening up, you will find opinion makers, people who love your food, love your restaurants, who start coming in. So that's a fundamental of this. So, but I would say that there are a lot of changes which would continue to happen, and we would need to be ready for those changes. Changes would happen on almost every aspect. I call the three big changes which happen to every business, and it continues to happen. And this is not, let's not put it too much on COVID. I know last 2 to 3 years the industry was in a certain amount of pain, and this has actually increased that, and disruptions were coming. First we were all fighting out that why delivery has come in, the dining has reduced, and some were fighting out rentals gone up, malls being charging exponential rentals, and so on and so forth. So we were having, this industry was loved by entrepreneurs, investors. They always wanted, whenever you made some money, you wanted to own a restaurant, you get into that. And there were some seasoned professionals also who were there. But this industry for last 3 to 5 years, at least I would know, has a lot of challenges, and a lot of closures we saw. So there were inherent business problems which were going on, and now you have COVID. So we are in a little bit of a multiplication situation. So this is a great reflection to go back on the business model itself and say, how do we really make business models going forward more sustainable and more ready for these changes, which keep surprising restaurant operators? Because we have for many years not changed our mindset of running the business we used to run. And anytime any change came to us or any objection came to us, we were not ready for it. Delivery was one of the big disruptions, right? So a lot of people are still not ready for adapting that change, and some are through association fighting it out, some are fighting it out other ways. But fact is, this is not done by these two companies. Zomato and Swiggy have not done that. This change is desired by the consumer. If the consumer has desired a change, then it has to happen. Somebody would find an opportunity and bring that change. So 3 changes which continue to happen to businesses. Earlier, the cycles were 3 to 5 years. Then later it came down to about 2 years. Now I think the change cycles would happen every 6 months. And change would happen on product side, it will happen on processes, and it will happen on continuous priority change for consumer, how they prioritize their decisions. So how they're consuming, what they're demanding, and how your business is going forward, especially in restaurant space, would be ready for these changes. So let's set up perspective. What is the perspective so far? One, I think it is story so far. It is not a complete story. It's, even if the restaurants open up tomorrow, we don't know where we are headed, and we can keep. Now I think the next era of our discussion will shift to a lot of politics between the states and things like that. So we will have a lot of state of confusion, which would continue to happen over 3 to 4, 5 months, and anybody guess even it goes beyond that. But you would have what I call live by the day strategy. And that's something which business owners should do. So we should not be in bunkers. We need to come out, take control of our businesses, and live by the day strategy. So whatever we do, we need to really create for that day, plan for that day, execute for the day, and count that how you're successful or not. And continue to test and measure what is working for you and what is not working for you. Second challenge which we are all going to face is productivity. So your productivity would get hit. Your manpower, you cannot bring in complete, so you will have issues. One, you will not get manpower easily. Good manpower would get dislocated and things like that. And then you will have an occupancy issue. If you're a restaurant, you'll get lesser people, lesser deliveries, lesser this. So overall, this whole productivity of your business would come down. Now I'm be reading a lot of people are trying to make strategies of offering and pleasing everybody cheaper food options, discounts, and because they just want to go and capture that share. It would be foolishness. I would say the first mistake no restaurant operator should do is start doing and pleasing more. You anyway are going to work on what I call lesser efficiency, lesser productivity. And at this stage, if you try to even please consumers, you will do a wastage. You will have to spend more on safety, much more on safety. A lot of new packaging, a lot of other new things would start coming in. And if you try to even pass that value further, like you were doing, I think there were a lot of mistakes people were doing. They were trying to put these discounts in the market, and this even deliveries. You used to have these BOGO offers, buy one get one free, and all that. All that has to stop right now. Very few people are going to come and consume from you in the starting point. They are your loyal customers. They don't mind paying you a top dollar. And even if I would go to extend and encourage every single restaurant operator to increase their price, good consumers would appreciate that fact, and you are doing a great service. I call it a great service because this is a great service to out there and still in these difficult times, continue to service your consumer. Even if you take a little share up there, there should be no guilt in that. And it should be a collective effort. If you not do this collective effort, it never happens, right? So if you collectively think through that, how I'm going to do it, end of the day, it's going to come from the same dollar that the consumer is going to spend. And you have to have a lesser productivity, and everything else is going to be a huge cost for you. So unless and until you rationalize that, you will never be able to make a business sense. And voice that thought, because if I see that there is a lack of a collective voice, and I am not against anything. I don't even participate in any associations, but I personally feel restaurant industry lacked a collective voice, or maybe we've not encouraged forums which actually go to the right messaging, and that's very important. And especially for this pricing, go out and collectively, everybody should collectively say, we would charge you a little higher, but we are concerned about your safety and we'll give you absolutely safe food to eat. So people who have a little sense in their mind, they would understand that why you're charging more. And that's something, one of the messages which I would have in this starting point. Now, first, I will divide my discussion into three different parts. One is what we call about sustainability, because this is something which is very, very critical, and one has to really see through how you would sustain, especially for the first 6 months. And if you don't have a very clear drawn plan for the 6-month sustainability cycle, you might get into a wrong cycle. Second is we will have to spot opportunities. No business can run without a very strong opportunist mind and see where are the spots of growth, where is the growth going to come from. And then we'll talk about a little bit of how do we bring, which is I would say the biggest cause today. And I've not seen at this stage from where I hear and see from the public, I've not seen anything which is done strongly at a restaurant as an industry to create that consumer confidence. We are not reaching out, and this is a mistake we are all doing. We are not collectively reaching out. Even if it takes a collective pooling in of dollar and going out and reaching out and talking about food safety, telling people what initiatives the restaurant industry is doing, that's not been done. That's done super in a lot of other countries. And that's how they were able to open up on faster way. They were able to restore confidence better and so on and so forth. So we'll talk about this part. How do we bring consumer confidence? Because end of the day, it's all about consumer confidence. If it doesn't come back quickly, then we will always struggle for businesses, and we'll all find other answers, and we're not getting the other answer. I can tell you, if anybody is thinking that there's some signing of a grant coming in, it's never going to come. And if somebody wants to take cheaper loans in this time to survive, will be shooting himself in the feet. So it's just about stupidity when your business is anyway not going to perform and you try to take debt. It's a foolishness. Rather than close the business and move out. And if you feel that the business is not going to be with you, sustaining that business is an absolutely wrong idea by just taking more debt. So if any of young entrepreneurs who are there and running restaurants, and I think if you slightly have a mind in taking some debt to survive your business for 4, 5, 6 months, if you feel that is the answer, then you will be doing the biggest disaster of your life. So sustainability, start with sustainability. Sustainability is that you will not be able to, and sorry, pardon for my straight talking, because I feel that it is very important that everybody should really understand where they stand and how it is. So when this lockdown started, I called up all my restaurant clients. We have at Franchise India about 1,600 brands we work in food alone. And I did some calculation, and any given point in time, we would have 150 to 200 brands in F&B space working actively with Franchise India. So I called up all the players, friends, colleagues in the industry, and the one message which I gave it to them, I rather created a bailout kind of a paper, and I gave it to them that you will not be able to save all of it. And if anybody is trying to save everything, would collapse. So you need to really find your sustainable opportunities which are there. If you say a chain store operator and you feel that 20% of your restaurants are going to be badly hit, and they were anyway not doing well, you might take a reason of COVID and close them and move on. And even if you don't get a good resale value, first try to do a resale value, and we also have a full service on resales. But if you still don't get a good resale value, even closing down and taking that call at this moment would be a better choice. Because I know a lot of businesses anyway struggle, because they were only on a margin and they were just there and so on and so forth. And they have even more difficulty in these times to survive. Only your golden eggs, I'm again repeating, should be with you, and take that call immediately before you start whatever the savings or business or capital you have. If you put it into small pieces, you might get into even more problem. Second, I think you need to absolutely locate which are your immediate cash flow opportunities, and where are they going to come from. It can be in any format. You are a QSR, dark kitchen, restaurant, full fine dine restaurant. Where are the clear opportunities coming for you? And this might not come with the way you were doing business. And I'm sure everybody is an entrepreneur. Everybody has put last 60 days some thought that what is my plan B or plan C or plan D. So what is that opportunity which you have, which you need to put clearly out there and say, this is my next 3 to 6 months cash flow plan. A friend of mine, he started doing the small caterings, because big caterings are not allowed. So he's trying to do a lot of that work. Somebody start taking an opportunity in terms of a captive food supply. So they found some opportunities within the system, that how they can really come out and take those opportunities. So what is going to be your immediate cash flow situation? You need to really understand. Third, you need to build your own hyper-local capabilities. Hyper-local delivery capabilities is being missing in most of the companies. I feel that the future is going hyper-local, at least from a delivery viewpoint I'm talking about. And if it is hyper-local, you need to invest and build those capabilities. Consumer would become loyal, and I'll talk about that later. And if you give and deliver, and we have seen in this last 60 days, people who have efficiencies of right delivery, they looked after their entire thing, the consumer has been locked again. Earlier, we were losing on this same customer, but now I think they would get locked with you if you are able to build your own delivery capability. So if you are say quick service and you feel that there were 200 loyal customers which you need, reach out to them and say, we will help you and deliver you absolutely safe for you. Personalize your service. I have always say this moves from unorganized to organized, organized to specialized, and specialized to personalized. How you personalize your service with the most loyal customers and reach out to them very personally at this stage and create those capabilities to take a wallet share from them consistently, you will do a great service. So find out who is your 100 people who always bought from you, 200 people who bought from you. Create capabilities predominantly for them and create absolutely customized service for them. And they would become your fans, and they would shift into becoming your fans, and they would continue to consume from you. This would give you a little bit of a milestone in terms of in between, rather than looking for always new customers. First, trading hours. This is one of the challenges which I have found in restaurants and in these spaces. We have in India has a particular problem. We have very little trading hours. How do you expand those trading hours? Because now in those trading hours would be trading even less. So how do you expand that trading hours? What you can do from the same infrastructure other than what you're doing? So you need to really see through what else is an opportunity which needs to be done. Another very important point is collaboration for the industry. Industry is very interesting in that sense because everybody knows everybody. They talk a few times, they meet, they have a drink together, everything they do, but they don't collaborate. So how do you collaborate? How do you really use each other's resources? I know they remember the times when airlines were dying, they collaborated on the ground force. The same people were handling Kingfisher also and Jet Airways also, and they collaborated. They cut down their overall cost and say, let's collaborate at the back. People would not know, end of the day, they are coming to fly, but what stops us not to collaborate and have one team? So I feel that the both front end and a back end would need a lot of collaboration. Find out 4, 5, 6 other players who have something which they do better than you. Go ahead and say, you take my responsibility also and do this piece. And maybe something you are better than that, and you can go and create that. It would do two things are very clearly in everybody's mind. Driving top line is not a control function at this stage. Let's be honest. But controlling your expenses is very much a control function. And that control function can be done with a lot of collaboration, outsourcing, and a lot of other capabilities. You can do that. Because I think that if at this time, with the odd structure, if you try to just be a top rider and try to drive your top line, you might get into a mistake. Another area which is also happening, but it can require a new capex, is the relocation. But if you feel that you have a great IP, great audience, which is not going anywhere, but this is a time where you need to take some strong calls to relocate, take that call, because that maybe on a long term give you benefit. For example, we were doing some case study for one of the clients, which is sitting on a 6 lakh rupees rental monthly. And my advice to them was that take this call and bring your rental to about 3 odd lakh rupees. Even if you in a short term, you have some losses in between and doing it, but over 5 to 10 years terms, if that location really works for you, you will see you will have a lot of benefit in terms of your cost capabilities, and the businesses would start looking better. But that's a call only if you have fresh capex or you're able to do that, especially for lighter models, which can be quickly shifted. The relocation can be very important. Business analysis is very important. How do you really do analytic on your business and performance and understand who's buying, how much they're buying, and continue to take the dollar up from the same consumer. Now, I think this data is not available with, and I think there is a company in US it's called Black Box or something, which is a consumer insight company. So I think there is a now need for consumer insights and a very strong need of that. I feel that there is also another opportunity which is coming in, which is carry out. India is not a very big carry out market where people can just drive into the restaurant. They don't want to enter the restaurant, but they would get freshly done food, especially for them, and they just carry out. So, but you need to shout it out and say, we have a very strong carry out opportunity. We will have food done in absolute hygiene for you, designed for you, done for you, personalized for you, and you just pick it up and go. And so people anyway want to really get out homes and drive it out and safe within your car, and they just bring the food back. So I think that's something which India has not done. Now I'll quickly go to the second point, which is what I call spot opportunities. How do you sweat out your current infrastructure? I think a lot of bigger restaurant operators have too big areas. How they want to sweat out, how they can really use that area more efficiently and do whatever they want to do. Anything which have some synergy, really find out that every square feet of your place, how do you really sweat out that your area? How do you sweat out your IP, which is I think a hidden thing available. And I really felt that a lot of our restaurateurs have phenomenal brands. A friend of mine, I saw his Facebook post that he runs a brand called Kylie, a very successful Oriental restaurant, and now he does his packaged mixes, garlic paste and a lot of other things. So I saw some post which he was doing. He has a brand now. He has a strong brand, especially in Delhi NCR. Everybody knows his restaurants. And if he creates his gourmet product which can be sold, so I think ready to eat, ready to cook, these are going to be huge opportunities. And if you use that opportunities to be labeled under your name, This is great. I mean, I would share with you, Marriott Hotels is selling mattresses, they're selling bed sheets, they're selling room amenities, they're selling wardrobes, everything they're trying to sell to their consumers, because they understood that this is something which they have a hidden capacity lying with them, and this can be easily being given to every single person. So that's a huge opportunity for you also to see how you leverage your brand, even license your brand. We have a licensing company, we license big IPs. You can license your brand to somebody else for some other use. This is another opportunity. Expand your equity. I feel that people have been very closed. Openly go and ask for cash. Get more partners in your business, because if you cannot feel the growth, maybe this is an in-term situation. You don't want to kill the business. Your business is good, but you need next 6 months maybe a fresh capital, fresh equity. Go out and open up your equity. Talk to everybody. Talk to investment bankers, everybody, including we run the business like that. So you should be shameless about raising capital at this stage, inviting like-minded partners, people who see a good business in but you have run out of cash, or you will not have enough cash to sustain this for 6 to 9 months. Best thing is always equity. Like what Lance is doing. I mean, he's great. He's raising a lot of equity and he's cutting off his debt. So he'll be debt-free, but he's using his situation to unlock his equity. At this stage, every business owner should unlock his equity. Finally, for opportunists and great operators, I would say this is a great time. Markets shrink, but market share should not shrink. So for good operators, you should take this as an opportunity to acquire and operate all the other restaurants which are going to come in the market. And you can there can be companies which are being formed, which are great operating companies. I can clearly see through that there are some people who would create great operating companies and build that business model. So that can be a big opportunity. Finally, on the consumer confidence, that's my last part, and then I can see a lot of faces coming on. So they are waiting for the next session to start. I've already overrun my time. So with one of the areas in the last is would be how do we build consumer confidence with a single voice. Consumer confidence would come by owner delivering his own participation in businesses. I go to one small place in my neighborhood. I see the owner standing himself. It gives me a lot of confidence to see him on the floor. If I see him on the floor, I know this business is well taken care and this is safe area. So one of the areas which I will get advice to all the restaurateurs and operators, participate. It gives your people confidence that you are there on the floor, and your customers confidence. Create transparency. You all single voice messaging from the entire industry that you are safe. So I thought about one message which I will leave you with. If somebody can put that slide, and this. Is the slide available or? Pritima is there.
Sir, if you can continue, we are trying to get the slide, please.
So I think I'm pretty done with this, and this word I can tell you. I mean, they can find a slide. It's called rest assured. Rest assured, I felt was synonymous to restaurants, and every single restaurant should really have this big confidence building for consumers to say, when you walk into our environments, you have to be rest assured that everything to the dot has been taken care. Put your messaging out like McDonald's have done, that they have 46 parameters they would do in food safety. So if you can also, each one of you can go out and communicate, and please communicate collective. And at Restaurant India also, we will try to pass the message as much we can. So this is a little bit from my side. If you, I'm around, so I've already run out of my time, which was allocated to me. So I don't want to have other panelists to be held on. You can come in and take over the next panel. Thank you very much. Thank you once again for taking your time out to be part of this.
Thank you very much, sir. I think the start has been very, very good. And we would now like to move on to the first panel of the day. This panel will be for around 60 minutes. The topic of this panel is restaurant reopening, modernization, transformation, and personalization. Our panelists for this session are Chef Hemant Oberoi, Chef and owner Hemant Oberoi, Aditi Dugar, CEO and owner Mask, Saisha Kapoor, Associate Director, Silver Beach Entertainment and Hospitality, Tarun Mahadevan, Director, Cool Cream Milano, Seema Arora Nambia, Senior Vice President, Marketing and People Sources, Hardcastle Restaurant Private Limited, Sahil Jain, co-founder, Dine Out, Maria, Editor in India and Franchise India. Over to you, Ms. Maria.
Thank you very much, Pratima, and a warm welcome to all the participants who've joined us over here today to this reopening of restaurants. Now, Delhi government has for sure announced that the restaurants will now be open, which is by tomorrow. The malls are getting ready to open, while I know the same sort of statistics do not apply for across different parts of the country, but for sure not Maharashtra, which is not opening, but for other parts of the country, of course, we are now getting slowly to open. Once Delhi opens in, the same mode will go in other countries, other states as well. So today is also the World Food Safety Day, and we know that the food safety is going to be paramount for us to get our customers back into the restaurant. And I also feel that the consumer confidence that we need today for the customers to come in is certainly going to be driven by the restaurants first. You know, it's not just about the protocol which the government has given to us in terms of the kind of health norms we need to follow, the kind of social distancing norms we need to follow. That is something we'll anyway have to do as restaurateurs. But what is more important is that, you know, as a particular restaurant, what is it that I'm going to tell my customers? What is it that I'm going to share with them? That is the most important, which gives them the confidence to walk into my restaurant and say, I want to dine in. Now, you know, as they say that sometimes adversity brings in more inventions than otherwise. So we've seen how carry out and how, delivery has sort of become now a normal for any restaurant brand today to follow and practice in their premises. Or whether they set it up as a separate brand is something for each brand or each food service company to see. But it is something that has taken up. But what would now required is that once the dining in starts, we need to properly be able to divide between our delivery and carry out business and our dining in business, so that there is absolutely no conflict between these businesses. These businesses have to be different units and they have to have their economics therefore worked out. So when we are working with less staff, when we are working with less manpower, we need to be absolutely 100% sure that we are in control of our business revenues which are coming. We don't want it to be counterproductive and not eating one sphere, not eating into the other sphere. So we have a great panel here today, which is going to tell us really how they have prepared for their reopening of their restaurants as we get ready and move on with the open up phase of the restaurants. It's been more than 70 days now that the restaurants had been closed. In fact, the restaurants were the first to close down, and we are probably going to be the last ones to open up. We've seen already offices opening up for the last 2 to 3 weeks. So it's something we need to make the most of, and our SOPs, our operational procedures, and the confidence that we build to the consumer has to be absolutely the top in order to get them into our premises. So let me start with the veteran Chef Hemant Oberoi, who's joined us here today. Sir, you know, it's not as if in the long years that you've spent in the food service business, you have seen many crises. I mean, 2008 crisis of terrorism were probably the largest that you saw. And I'm sure at that point of time also, a lot of customers would be wary to come into the restaurants, into the hotels. So, you know, any sort of parallels you can draw from something for restaurateurs to say that it was something that happened at that point of time, and some steps or some areas that you had taken into consideration, which restaurateurs can use now also. So you need to unmute, please.
Thank you, Ritu. there are no parallels, if you ask me, between the two. Um, at that time, we knew the enemy, we knew where they were, and unfortunately, this corona has been a very invisible and unknown enemy. We don't even know how it comes, from where it comes. And I mean, it's a different ballgame altogether. Here, thousands of people every single day we are seeing getting affected. That time in that building, we knew exactly these terrorists will come down, how we have to uh, rather look after the people, make sure that they are safe. And in this scenario of corona, we can try our level best, like the rest of the country is doing, to make sure that the people are safe. And once we reopen the restaurants, and we have to ensure that the guests are given that kind of a confidence, and the staff is given that kind of a confidence that, look, you are back, we are back. I'm sure it is going to take little time for all of us to be back, and but I'm very positive that we will bounce back. If a couple of months it might take, or probably 6 to 12 months is a period which I think, because we are all interlinked. The restaurant business is domestic as well as with the travelers which come from different cities. Once the airlines start, international airlines start, the hotels fill up, uh, then only we get a little more business than usual. Yes, initially people are going to be very hesitant in coming out and dining, especially in the fine dining places where they were spending so much of time, and every meal in the evening was about 2.5 hours meal. Probably now, if they will come, they will might not go through the 5 course meal or the 7 course meal they were going through, and they will go in for probably a 2 course or a 3 course meal, and they want to get out in an hour and a half. And of course, the things will change from hygiene point of view to the sanitization point of view. From the SOPs will have to be different. Guests will be hesitant, first of all, when standing in the queue and they are distant apart. If you tell them to come with a mask, with a sanitizer, the staff is with the sanitizers. So probably the hesitation will be both sides.
Correct.
The guests will be also feeling that I have been served with the people with a mask, and guest is same time the staff is wondering whether, I'm fully fit, I'm for this thing. So that kind of a confidence we have to give it to our staff as well as the guest, that we are following all the SOPs, we are fully sanitized, we are taking extra care, we are watching our people day in, day out. Yes, we will have difficulties in our place. We can't have the chefs, the distance will be there, so 2 chefs can't work in one particular section. So those kind of menus will have to evolve during this period according to the situations. Probably a shorter menus will come. Probably we might not have even the tablecloths or the napkins as suggested by the government, even that, use paper napkin, disposable menus, disposable this. But in the long run, I do not know if that is going to be economical for the restaurateurs.
And
And because
expensive for customers.
and for the customers, both ways.
Yeah.
So yes, we will definitely bring in the business point of view, the economics point of view, but on top of the line will be the I would say the confidence to the customer. Okay, look, we are back in business, let's move on. That's the way life is going to be. If corona is going to be part of our lives till the vaccine and everything comes back, and probably we will have to live with it, and we will have to move on and taking all the best precautions we can take. And probably we should learn from each other, whatever the best practices, if anybody is doing it, they should share it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no,
Like
I think
the word, it's going
collaboration.
to be difficult when I hear about the top restaurants in the world changing themselves. I mean, Noma selling burgers at 18 euros now.
Mm.
I mean, the guy had a menu of 275 euros every day. Single customer paying 275 euro only for food. And today they are selling 18 euro burger restaurants. I mean, this is unparalleled. We do not know 11 Medicine reopening. We do not know French Laundry is going to reopen. So it's a difficult scenario all over the world. But how we come out of it, I think we'll have to fight it out.
Yeah.
We have to be brave. We have to be patient in coming out with successfully with this.
Yeah, totally agree, sir. So I think you're right. And I mean, how is one even supposed to sort of come up with any kind of revenue projection when your entire menu has been jeopardized, and whatever it was that you could charge from your customers or could ask your customers to pay in today's time may not be even possible going forward. So the whole economics may have to be rewritten for a restaurant in that sense.
Oh, it's going to change. It's going to change, especially for the fine dining. I mean, we had almost like 70% of the produce which was imported, and it's going to be a difficult scenario. We do not even know when the imported goods will arrive, and whatever was in stocks, we probably might not use because it's already been 3.5 months.
Correct. Yeah. So that is
So the menus will change according to the situations. Everything will change.
Totally agree, sir. Okay, sir, let me come back to you once again. I'm going to go to Saisha now. So Saisha, at Silver Beach Cafe, you have a lot of casual dining concepts that you run. When the customer today is wary of coming into the restaurants, and in fact, entire casual dining industry was really made to size, that is more customers could come in and say they could be part experience, part food, and part fun that they would have together. Now with social distancing, 6 feet distance between the tables, and the rentals of course are not going to come down. I mean, we've been having talks with a lot of malls, and they've not felt that they've got any sops from the government or any other place. So therefore they have no way that they can reduce the rental. So how are you going to sort of meet the economics of the entire restaurant? And I mean, we're going to be understaffed when we start our restaurants. That's another norm that has been put in place. So now in such a situation, how do you see the business business rebuilding happening, and some kind of projections that you had put probably in January 2020 for your business, at least to some extent, can be met once you reopen? Please unmute, Sasha.
Ritu, hi everyone on the panel. Okay, so well, you mentioned about plans that we had drawn in January. So that's gone out of the window, obviously, and we have to start fresh on a clean slate. It's another era altogether now for us. When you mentioned about costs, survival, and things like that. Now, I'll be honest with you, like the rest of India is opening, slowly opening. They're going to slowly put their foot into the market, going to see what will happen. I think everyone is very uncertain right now, not just employers, but also guests. They don't know exactly, are they going to go? How often are they going to go? Are they going to go immediately? Or will they try and explore this once their friends say it was okay? You don't know what the market is like. However, the restaurants decide that yes, we want to fight this through.
Right.
Have to start fresh on a fresh slate, saying that this is how long we can try for till we have no other option left. Obviously, liquidity, cash flow, these are going to be massive issues. As we had obviously also discussed offline, these are going to be massive issues because ultimately, money counts. You have to be able to run a business through the financials. There are several ways, of course, that we can try and I don't want to say make more money, because our core business is F&B, and that's from where the money will come. We can obviously explore different businesses. Like, I'll give you an example. We have a beautiful beach facing property, Estella, in Mumbai, and one-off, very rare, depends on who it is, what the relationship we have, what's the exposure. We do give it out for a shoot here and there, very rare. Okay, but that is not our core business. So when we talk about, parallel streams of business that we may be able to explore, there are such small things that you can explore place to place, depending on, what the attributes of your outlet are. But all in all, I think we'll have to really work with our costs. We'll have to work with, like you said, staff. A lot of staff has gone back. A lot of them were migrants and they've left. How we work with existing staff and small numbers. We have multiple outlets. So maybe we were contemplating on if we could, try and make our teams multitask across brands, across shifts, depending on, what every, so there's a restaurant and then there's a little, so there's a proper dining space versus a more casual. So we'll have to kind of multitask between our staff. That is something that we probably will be forced to do, considering that we will be short-staffed. I think most people will be at this point. Then again, rents. I think that's a very big question in everyone's mind across India. Rents have to be renegotiated. I mean, there's no two ways there. We'll have to kind of work a new model out altogether. I'm not talking about just figures and numbers, but we'll have to work out a model. It can't be location-based very much now. It will have to be more based on what we are making, because everything is quite uncertain right now. So it depends on what is practically possible to pay. Not that we don't want to pay, but what is practically possible to pay. We don't know what our new revenue is going to be if we're running at 50% occupancy. So, I mean, there are a couple of ways that we can work out, minimize wastage, obviously try and keep a very close eye on purchase, renegotiation of rents, longer credit periods to suppliers and vendors. So there are certain things that we can do to help us survive while we are able to get some sort of positive business back in the market.
Sure. That sounds totally fair. And I think with liquidity, you're right, it's going to be a massive problem going forward. And then, of course, we need to use our staff to different purposes. So let me start this question with you, and I'm going to want to have Seema also talk about it. Now, I know social distancing is a norm for dining in, and social distancing, particularly that 6 feet norm that government has fixed, which is, sort of works all through. Now, how does it work in the kitchens? I mean, the kitchen was never designed to have so much distance. In fact, there was an assembly line through which food was produced. So, how do you see a social distancing of 6 feet happening in the back end, in the back of the house, in the kitchen itself? Understandably, we are going to be short-staffed, so less staff there. But, asking them to wear masks, asking them to maintain a 6 feet distance, how is that ever going to be achieved in a restaurant?
So Ritu, I'll be honest with you, Bombay restaurants are not that large, not most.
Correct.
Not casual dining, because we do a lot of casual dining. So it's very impractical to expect that there'll be exactly 6 feet distance between tables. Restaurants are one, not large. Second, having 6 feet will leave us with almost not even half of the tables that we did start with. Correct. So I'll come to the kitchen later, but for the guest, for service itself, it's going to literally reduce our capacity, overall capacity, to almost by half. I mean, it depends on what restaurants are available. Of course, we put in a lot of requests that, allow us to use the outside area for restaurants that have that, the possibility of using the Otla area or the outside area. Not all do, but the ones that do have, I mean, we've requested. We were on another call the other day, it was more of make requests for Maharashtra restaurants. And it was, everybody was like, allow us to utilize more space, because we already are in a lot of constraint when it comes to space. As for the kitchen, I don't know if, like, I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't know if we'll be able to maintain 6 feet distance. We can try, we can work with lesser staff, multitasking, like I said, work across shifts, not overlap. And obviously keep, different sections as far as possible within the kitchen, and your gloves and your sanitizers and your masks, all that has to be done. But a kitchen is a hot space.
Right.
It's not always that practical and easy to expect them to work there for 12 hours and 10 hours in that exhausting heat, with ovens and gas and all of that. That's going to be a tough one. At best, what we can do is try and have lesser people do more work, or take in guests only as much as the kitchen can manage at that point. Maybe we'll have to work reverse now. I don't know. I mean, Maharashtra still has to wait and watch. So once we open, we'll get an idea. I mean, if the kitchen has to deliver, right? If they deliver is only when we can make the guest happy.
Sure.
So probably have to switch our roles now.
Correct. Okay, Seema, let me come to you to ask the second part of this question. Now, most of the kitchens are closed, but in McDonald's case, the kitchens are really open. So your staff is really around there. And as, Saisha has mentioned that particularly for Maharashtra, the restaurants are not made for sites. They are made for, to make the best of the space that is there, given how expensive real estate is. So how are you so what kind of SOPs is McDonald's putting in place to be able to meet all the social distancing, dining in rules? So, I mean, if you can just give us a sense of, as a quick service restaurant, what is it that you're changing about your business versus what it was prior, pre-COVID?
Sure. So I think, one of the biggest differences obviously is that we are a quick service restaurant, and as such work on a limited menu. The simple fact that you work on a limited menu allows you to build much better productivity within your team. So our restaurants have been open for delivery. We've just also ended up opening our restaurants in Gujarat, and I think some amount in Bangalore for in-house dining. The process changes, like Saisha said, I mean, exactly 6 feet isn't going to happen. You are seeing that consumers are obviously a little bit edgy about coming in and actually coming into contact with employees. Simultaneously, employees are equally as uncomfortable with that, right? And we have to understand we're a human business, so it's going to be both sides. Migrant labor makes up about 30% of our workforce in this part of the country. So given all of these caveats, I think the first thing that we looked at was how do we change processes to ensure that A, we have a limited menu that can be produced quickly. A lot of analytics go into figuring out what that limited menu looks like. And any restaurateur will tell you that 70% of their product mix will come from maybe 20% of the actual menu items that they have.
Right.
How do you start cutting the tail off to be able to understand how do you effectively provide the largest number of customers with the largest number of products? The second part, I think, is in the back end, you will have to start changing the processes in terms of automation, right? Which is an investment from the owners and operators of restaurants. Whatever earlier was done by humans, and I think Ritu, you mentioned earlier, like trays, for example, right? How do you now automate dishwashing so that you now are negating positions that otherwise would have required humans? So that would become, the second aspect of it. The third one is the training piece in terms of your people, which is how do you ensure that they understand repercussions of this? They understand the need for washing hands. So the good news for us, for example, is we've always taught hand washing, and our guys wash hands every well in the kitchen goes off, actually get them to go and wash hands. It's a part of your training program, it's a part of their shift run, it's a part of all processes. So those things were very natural for us, but that training and regimentization, especially given where people come from, socio-economically, will become the third really important aspect. So the first one, is just going to be how do you look at your menu? The second one will be how do you look at your processes and automation? And the third one will be training, the way I look at it. These are the three real major SOPs as we start looking to open up again.
Sure. And front of the house, what changes is it that you're affecting for your customers?
So I think front of the house, while we are doing the social distancing, the good news of having a parent with 135 different other countries, some of who have already opened, is that you always have fairly well detailed procedures for dealing with the consumer. The interesting piece on the consumer side that at least they've seen globally and we are also seeing locally is demand is not going to be as much of a challenge. Our problem is also going to be supply at this point of time.
Correct.
Right? Given all of the norms that are there, as well as the supply chain challenges, supply is going to be where your challenges are going to lie, your restaurants having cut down in size. Also, the other interesting part, I think, is that, for our business specifically, we're seeing there's a huge shift in how people are consuming. Right? So channels of consumption had actually started to change pre-COVID. People, and especially if you look at cities like Mumbai and Bangalore and Chennai where traffic is so terrible, people were much more comfortable ordering delivery. And with the aggregators coming in, that was anyways changing consumption patterns. This has just amplified it to another level.
Correct.
Right? So I don't see that there'll be any difference in consumption. How they consume will start to change.
Right. So, I mean, how are you changing things within the restaurant? I mean, there are service trays and then there are, self-service particularly within McDonald's. So how are you looking to change?
So the interesting part in Hardcastle, we had already started implementing something called our Experience of the Future, which actually involved table service. So a lot of our restaurants have moved to table service in the West and South. So that negates the reason for us to do the self-service piece. We've done a whole lot of digitization on the ordering side of it. So when consumers order, they now don't need to go only up to the counter and place the order with the counter person, but they can actually use the app they've got from an in-store dining perspective, or we've got self-order kiosks at the start of our restaurants, which allow you to place the order on the self-order kiosk. You get a number, you go sit on the table, your order reaches you on the table.
Right.
So a lot of the processes had already started to change. We're just accelerating that to ensure that we can, we're able to service the customers we have. Having said that, and I think everyone's touched upon it, lobbies are going to get smaller. Real estate is prohibitive. You're going to have to figure a middle ground out around that.
Correct.
But like I said, I mean, to me, the biggest shift that I saw even as, early as last year was this whole shift towards in-house dining versus restaurant dining. And it didn't matter what kind of cuisine you were eating. People were just getting very tired of being out. But I don't know if that's the same for fine dining. It was a lot more prevalent in our business.
That's true. Let me come to Aditi. Aditi, are you there? My question to you, Aditi, is that given the fact that, Mask is a very experiential restaurant and where you have a 10-course meal and, amazing ingredients that you source from different parts of the country, how is it that you're going to sort of keep up the same standards that you have had for the restaurant when you, in the pre-COVID times? What is it that you're going to change about it? I was thinking today, how will the maths work? I mean, you have basically got 50% human resource working, you have got 50% ingredients coming in, or even less than that. You have got probably 50% revenues that you're going to work on, and then probably 100% of input cost and 100% of rentals that you're going to pay. So particularly from a fine dine point of view, how are you going to make this economics work together?
Of course, a few things. I mean, in terms of rent and sort of
build this relationship with him. Uh, sit down on the table with the landlord, and you have to make sense of your business, because it's not about a short term. We're not looking at a 3 take. So it's really for you have to strategize for a longer term than strategize for the short. So sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I think my connection
just.
That's okay. So I'm gonna have to come back to you again, Aditi. I'm gonna go to Tarun at this point of time. Tarun, you have restaurants which is serving different kinds of cuisines, right from Thai to lots of other cuisines. And now, given the fact that your entire the ingredients, the supply chain is going to change. How is it that you're trying to work out the entire restaurant model at Cool Cream Milano to be able to service the restaurant and to be able to service the customer, and also at the same time be able to give the same experience that your customer was looking at from the restaurant as prior?
Thanks, Ritu. I think that what's most important is we had to sort of, the biggest challenge we had to overcome is our supply chain partners had absolutely crumbled during during the lockdown. They weren't able to get goods across states. They weren't able to get goods across customs. So even when we were allowed to open for delivery and takeaway during the first week of April, a lot of our restaurants did struggle just getting up and running and getting basic ingredients in, because we did start we were relying on a lot of imported ingredients. So I think the first thing we did is the first meeting I ever had when it happened was we sat in with our purchase teams and sort of saw how much of our ingredients can we start localizing, how much of our ingredients can we start procuring locally as opposed to relying only on international vendors and international supply partners. So we sort of started looking at that. And of course, we had to tweak menus accordingly. So, so for example, if a restaurant had a menu around 200 items, you're open for delivery only on 30 items. So it was very, very challenging. And I think that the biggest challenge that we've seen is traditionally our restaurants, fine dine and casual both have only seen around 18 to 20% delivery volume, right? As opposed to dine-in. But I think Ms. Nambiar here really pointed out something very important, which is the sort of chunk that delivery is going to take when we open up, even for further in economy. I think that chunk is going to be a much larger chunk. I mean, we were preparing for a sort of 35-40% delivery volume as opposed to traditional 18-20%. So obviously, we have to cater to the demands in a delivery setting where we're able to deliver the food to customers through food that we never even imagined of delivering before in a container. We've had to start conceptualize that and see how we can optimize that as well. But I think that is the first thing is that as soon as we open, we will be opening with limited menus, with limited staff. And at the same time, we've taken some hard calls that if we're not able to get at least, say, anywhere between 40 to 55% of the menu up and running, we're not going to open. Because one thing we need to admit is that the customers that are going to be walking into our doors as soon as the lockdown is listed and dine-in is allowed are people who've genuinely missed going to restaurants. They're people who genuinely missed dine-in. They're people who genuinely missed being in the atmosphere of dine-in, the ambience, the level of service, everything like that. And I think that finding the eclectic balance of providing safe service standards with utmost safety, given the new guidelines issued, is really, really important. And we've been having briefings with our teams saying create caution, not chaos at the restaurant level. And as a couple of other people on the panel have also mentioned, it's not this, safety worry that's only coming from the customer side. Even our own staff are actually worried. So we've got worried. We've got service crew being like, hey, we're doing all this, but what are we doing for, to make sure that we're safe as well. So I think it's just a constant training program that's going in place. We're having very robust training programs. So we've actually come out with a very comprehensive phase-wise opening plan of all our restaurants down south, southern part of the country here. We're going to keep tweaking those models. We see that probably even though dining is allowed from June 8th, we're only opening one restaurant tomorrow. And we're actually getting in teams from our other restaurants to actually see how the service is being done there, tweak where it's possible, change the service standards, change the flow, the processes, everything. So, I mean, it's like day one of school for us all over again, And
That's right. But in hindsight, it might actually work better because, a lot of fluff gets built when we are doing businesses, and sometimes we're not able to remove it ourselves. So how is it that you're looking to change the business models going forward? I mean, as Chef Heman pointed out about Norm, that the burger price is nothing to what could be the ticket size in that restaurant. Now, given all of that, how is it that you sort of changing or rethinking the entire business model and reopening?
See, I mean, we've so obviously, while our Indian operations are restricted to primarily down south, we also have international operations in about 16 different countries. And fortunately, what we've been seeing is we've been seeing some decent numbers coming in for those countries. So restaurants in the USA where dining is allowed now, they're already back at around 65 to 70% of pre-COVID volumes. Germany, in fact, is at around 130% because we're seeing this huge surge in just the sheer vengeance of wanting to go out and wanting to be able to celebrate in a restaurant that, hey, this battle's a long one, but this isn't going to stop us. Australia and New Zealand have bounced back as well fairly strongly. APAC, except Australia and New Zealand, is still struggling. We're still only seeing around 35% volumes. Middle East as well is still at around 30% to 40% at the max. So I think that we don't want to rush into changing our business models yet, because I think the most important thing is we need to be able to know what sort of numbers we're going to be clocking. And it's very difficult. A lot of people have said, the government's not come out and done any restructuring plans. The key for a restructuring plan is they need to be able to predict what's going to happen in 6 to 7 months from now. And if they're not able, if they don't have any data or anything like that to rely on, it's going to be very difficult for them to give actually a really good package or a really good lifeline that can support restaurants and the hospitality sector going forward. But like I mentioned earlier, a lot of our brands, we are focusing on delivery. We're seeing if we can create cloud kitchen brands, which can sort of, harness the offline brand presence that these brands have had in an online space. We have done a couple of cloud kitchen formats already from our existing brand outlets that have been doing well for us during the lockdown. Simpler formats, good quality food at scale down prices, no fuss. And that's been working well for us so far. So yeah, we're just hopeful of picking up. And like I said, like everybody agrees, I think that building consumer confidence and educating the customer, I think that's going to be where 70% of our marketing budget is going to go for the next 3 months.
Sure. Yeah, no, well, at least we know where we are heading to some extent.
Yeah.
Sahil, let me come to you. Now, you've been working with restaurants and so many restaurants and helping them in getting customers inside their doors in the pre-COVID times. Now, when, we are in the middle of COVID, it's not over yet, even if the restaurants will open up. But what is it that you are looking to see, and how do you feel technology could play a big role in being able to give that consumer confidence back, to go back to the restaurants, to feel that, they will be, it will be safe and hygienic for them to eat out? And I mean, understandably, eating out itself and going to a restaurant itself is a very positive thing, because we feel life is back, and things are happening where things are much better than the way they were earlier when we were all sort of stuck at home. So what is it that you feel from a technology standpoint can be done to make or give that assurance to the customer to be able to use that?
I think technology is going to play two very critical roles, right? So one is on the consumer confidence side. So we are doing multiple things on our platform, which is Dine Out, and In Resto, which is our B2B suite, which is a complete stack for the restaurants to kind of manage the technology, right? So I think digital ordering inside the restaurant to digital payments is something that we're doing, where we've launched the contactless dining suite, where people can just, come in, scan the QR code, get the menu, place their order, and pay their bills inside the restaurant. That is one very simple thing to build consumer confidence, where we've done a survey and seen that, physical menus is something that consumers don't want to kind of touch, at least in the near future, next 6 to 8 months, right? So that is one area. Second is, from a safety and hygiene perspective, we've tied up with multiple agencies which we can kind of ensure that we can give that service to our restaurant partners and showcase it on the Dine Out app to consumers, saying that, hey, these are our 20,000 restaurant partners, and this is the hygiene or safety that they're kind of taking care of inside their restaurant. Um, this could include, hygiene audits. It could be steady fume services, disinfectants, etc., PPE kits that are being used by the restaurateurs, regular sanitization, so on and so forth, right? That's one simple way to kind of showcase that to the consumers. Over and beyond that, we're also now getting into a tech integration where we can do the live kitchen feeds as well, right? So whichever restaurant is comfortable and would like to showcase that to consumers, we can actually show that to the restaurant and to the consumer on the app, and build more consumer confidence. Because obviously, if I can see what's happening inside the kitchen, it gives me more confidence when I'm going out. So there are multiple views on that. Some restaurateurs would agree to it, some wouldn't, and everyone has their own sort of principles and ethics on that. But that is one area where we think that there will be some adoption, and consumers would kind of get more confidence once they start seeing a lot more of that happening across the board. So that's another thing that we are kind of enabling. The more important part, I think, that technology is going to play is on the restaurant side, right? So I think it was a matter of time before restaurateurs would start adopting technology, and we've been pushing that for the last 4 or 5 years. And as Seema also mentioned, I think that is getting accelerated now. Something that would have happened 2 years down the line, probably at full scale, is happening now immediately, right? And when I say adoption of technology, it's on both sides, right? One is for revenue management and yield management, to have new channels around delivery and takeaway. So I think while everyone has talked about delivery, I think takeaway is one channel which is going to scale up massively in India. If you look at US and Europe, there were significant channels, right? Pickups and takeaway, but India never really, was a big market for takeaway. I think people are coming around to that and would kind of be more comfortable doing those takeaways. Like, imagine a situation, I'm in a mall probably and I'm shopping for a couple of hours. I might just, take away my food and pick it up and go back home and eat it, right? So those kinds of use cases will pop up, and the percentage of takeaway is definitely going to go up, and restaurants should be ready for that. In terms of in-restaurant ordering, when we go to digital ordering, it's not just about consumer confidence. It's also an opportunity for restaurant to now know their customer better, as to what is being ordered, who the customer is, and how can you do better revenue management. Especially, like, we've at our end built stuff around dynamic pricing, right? So the question we ask is, why can't beer be priced at 200 rupees on a weekday versus 400 on a weekend? So can we do better yield management for restaurants depending on time of the day of the week? So that is another area where restaurants would kind of would like to focus on, and I think we've got the technology and would like to push that through. The other, which is far simpler, is recommendations, right? So if I'm having a soup, can I recommend a dim sum platter to go along with it, and kind of increase the average order value inside the restaurant, right? So a lot of innovation can happen on the data analytics side, where through machine learning, all this can be kind of pushed on to the restaurant or to the customer, so that the average order values or the repeat rates go up. And it'll be more important, considering there'll be limited seating now inside the restaurant, right? So now if a restaurant is operating at 30-40% capacity, how do I maximize my revenue, right? Because my costs are more or less same. I mean, okay, there will be some reduction in cost because of less number of staff, etc., inside the kitchen, or the serving staff because of lesser number of people. But these are ways and means through which restaurants can monetize much better, and also get more intelligent about their marketing strategies. How are they spending money, right? So can they be more efficient in their marketing spend, rather than spending on channels which are not really working for them? So I think, like, technology will play multiple roles in terms of building consumer confidence, as well as helping restaurants monetize or do better yield management, as well as do better cost efficiencies, right? So on the supply side, what we believe is that it's going to get more organized over time, right? Right now, a lot of it is happening offline. So with our POS, what we are doing is we're integrating with multiple e-commerce partners, right? Like an Amazon B2B or so on and so forth. So can there be an automated system where I know that I'm running out of XYZ material based on my recipe, and can I pre-order stuff, or reduce my pilferage when I'm ordering through B2B e-commerce? This could be through multiple guys, right? Right. It could be a Grofers, it could be a any other B2B platform which is delivering to restaurants, right? So we're enabling that through the channels in our POS so that the restaurants can be more aware of their actual costs and, be more efficient on that, right? As Saisha mentioned that, being more cost efficient on that side will become critical, and using technology versus doing it on Excel sheets will become more important, because, just managing all that cost on Excel sheets is not going to work in the future, right? So I think that is how we are viewing the entire stack, and that's how we built a stack to kind of enable our restaurant partners to be more technology efficient.
Sure. No, I totally agree. And I think eventually analytics can really play a big role in terms both for restaurateurs as well as for customers to be able to find the confidence that they're looking at when they're visiting a restaurant. So we're now getting lots of questions from our audience. So therefore, I know in interest of time, I would like for them to be able to ask us some questions today. Can we have Sumit or give him an audio, please? Can ask a question?
Hello.
We can hear you, Sumit.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Sumit Roniar from GEM International. We are packaging partners to leading restaurants and sweet shops here in NCR. Given the fact that government have guidelines that children below 10 years, senior citizens above 65 years, and sitting limitation up to 4 person in groups, this will be really a deterrent in fine dine restaurant for family turning up in any restaurant.
Are you asking it from someone in specific?
Yeah, it is a general question. Means a panel means I want that entire panel. Anybody can response on this, no?
So Tarun, Hemant, if you would like to, Hemant sir, would you like to give it a shot?
You see, it is going to be a deterrent. Definitely, it's going to be a deterrent. But probably in few days' time, they are not saying you are prohibited. It's a deterrent. They are saying avoid going out below 10 and above 60. And the life has to go on after that. Children will be going to schools. Children will be traveling in the buses or the metros. Children will be going out in the evenings. They'll be with their friends. They'll be playing also. Maybe safe distances are there and everything. But I think eventually they will come out and have, they will go down to the restaurants.
Sure, sir. Tarun, you wanna?
Yeah, I think adding to what Mr. Oberoi just said, I think that we have seen a lot of these offers for combo packs and all of that. So, for example, party packs, so for serving 16 people with a cake and a couple of starters and all that. We have got inquiries for that, and we have been able to do it. But like Mr. Oberoi just said, I think it's just a short-term fad. I think it's because people are being forced to stay indoors, and it's crazy because we once 2 days ago we got a request for a party of 30. And we were just shocked because, like, where is the social distancing? You're having a party of 30 in your house. We were really puzzled on that. But they had the required approvals and all of that. But yeah, I think it's just going to be temporary. And once things do get back up and running, and once probably a vaccine comes out, or once case counts do fall, I think people are just going to come back out again. I'm pretty confident of that. I'm pretty bullish of that as well. Thanks.
Sure. Can we take the next question from Rishabh Khetan?
Yeah.
Please go on, Rishabh.
Yeah. Hello, people. So my name is Rishabh Khetan. So I am from Bangalore, and I have completed my MBA and left the job. I was working in Kotak Mahindra Bank. So I come from a business family. I'm a Marwadi, and I'm very keen on starting my own business. So I left the job because I wasn't interested, and I had tried to start a preschool in Bangalore, but I was facing failures all the time when it was at the final stage and I still faced failures. But now I think that it was actually for good reason. But now I'm trying for other verticals as well. Different fields. Like I am interested in food business also from a long time. So according to you, I mean, is it recommended to think about a food business within this year? Will it be recommended?
Saisha, what would you say to this?
Well, honestly, I would say it takes a lot of courage to be in the food business at this point of time, while trying to manage the numbers and the figures and the finances. We can never lose touch with the human side of things, you know, and that's difficult to create, especially in a time like this, you know, where it's not just all business, like a lot of retail. My advice to you would be to probably work in any industry that you're interested in for a certain amount of time before you jump into it, from a professional point of view, whether it's F&B or anything else. And if it's F&B, this is a great time to learn, because this is a difficult time. So if you can work with somebody who is in F&B right now, and even just observe how they are trying to support and take forward the business in these difficult times, I think then eventually when times are slightly better, or I would say at least stabilize, that would be a good time for you to branch out alone.
Sure. Anybody in the panel who would like to add something there?
To be honest, like in my view, you know, with the consumer confidence focused on, you know, specialized brands and people trusting brands for safety and hygiene, to be honest, I don't think this is the best time to be starting a new, you know, a new food business. I think Saisha was very, you know, easy on that. In my view, to be like, you know, just to be very brutally honest, I don't think this is the best time to start a new brand. Because consumers out there will be going out for trusted brands which they've already consumed, where they can, you know, be sure that safety, hygiene, etc. is being managed. And with the current situation, I don't know. I think you should wait out another 6 to 8 months before thinking of opening a new food business.
To the next person, Anshul. I think no, sorry, not Anshul. Maybe Satish Bala Sundaraj. Or is Nilesh Lele there? Yeah, Satish, go ahead. Please unmute and ask your question. Satish, please unmute. Okay, let me ask his question. What makes restaurant to grow, and what is the expectation of customers would be? I mean, going forward, I think that's where he's asking that what do you think expectations of customers is likely to be, and how would a restaurant grow in such times? Aditi, would you want to take this up?
Yeah, sure. I think, I really think that the dining takeaway model is going to grow for most restaurants, even as we begin to open. I think also we can't really compare our situation to the rest of the world because of, you know, how large our economy is, how much our healthcare is. So
I think we've lost.
But I think the takeaway model is definitely still here to stay. And I think we're going to keep growing that. We're going to keep growing.
Sure.
I think restaurants even wasn't part of the model before.
Aditi, we're losing you actually. I think the signal is not playing up to its mark. So I think one question I see that has been often asked in the entire questions is that, do you think there is a big opportunity coming for frozen foods? I mean, from a food point of view and food safety point of view, do you feel that most restaurants are actually going to get into frozen foods from here on? Chef Hemant sir, if you would like to take that.
I'm a little doubtful onto in our country. I mean, it will be a little bit part of it, and frozen food is still not the end thing. You know, when we can get all the freshest possible vegetables and fresh ingredients, I don't think the frozen is going to be that big impact.
Sure.
That's a good question.
Who would like to take that about frozen foods? Aditi, Tarun, if you would like to comment on that.
I think that would be more a retail sort of format where you'd be seeing markets and things like that. So, for example, a lot of international brands outside the country, especially, they do have their signature sauces, signature marinades, or even ready-made foods. Again, they're leveraging their brand power in a supermarket format. But I don't think that, especially in a country like India, where there is lack of a significant cold supply chain, I think that scaling up a product like that will be very, very difficult. So I'd be wary as well.
Sure. Okay, we can take maybe one last question. We still have time for one more question. I think Manish Ranjan has asked, how will the waiter serve food to table being 6 feet away from, he can, I think it's more in humor to say that, how do you think you can serve food if he also has to be 6 feet away? You want to take it up? What kind of SOPs are we developing for waiters to be able to service the tables?
I guess, if he's covered and certified, it's not a problem.
I mean, if people are coming inside the restaurant to eat, I think that is something that they're okay with, right? I don't think that is something that can be kind of managed. If a person is coming and walking into the restaurant, they have enough confidence that the restaurant has taken enough measures to, check their staff and the hygiene. I think that is something a person would be kind of comfortable with. That's not something which can be done away with in my mind.
Sure. So I think in interest of time, I'm going to have to finish the first session over here. Some great learnings, I think. SOPs need to be rewritten for sure. We need to design our kitchens differently, particularly not that it looks like we're immediately opening new restaurants, but going forward, we certainly need to rethink how we're going to size our kitchens and how we're going to make sure that the distance is something that anyway becomes a norm for the kitchen as well, and not just for the front of the house. It's needless to say we are going to be operating our business at different capacities, whether it is our inputs or whether it is our, or any other item that we have. So we need to make sure that our menus are able to match up. And therefore, 80-20 principle would be very helpful, wherein 20% of our most selling items are pushed up to the top on the menu, and then other items only as and when the customer demands need to be created. And lastly, I would say, it's eventually about restaurateurs coming together and collaborating and taking, if we're going to keep looking at the government support, or we're going to look at some other support coming, that's not happening. So therefore, we need to take a front foot forward and say that, look, we are as restaurateurs need to make sure that we are well placed and well ready to open our restaurants and able to serve our customers the way we have always served them. So thank you very much to all my panelists, Chef Hemant Oberoi sir, to Aditi, to Seema, to Tarun, to Sahil for joining us over here today, to Saisha for being a part of it and sharing such good learnings. Thank you very much. I now give it to you, Pratima, for introducing the second panel.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all the panelists for the fantastic session. Moving on to our second panel of the day. This panel will be for about 60 minutes. The topic for this session is importance of safe and hygiene food. What is India's top restaurant doing? Panelists for this session are Mr. Akshay Bector, CMD Kremika Food Industries Limited, Sabyasachi Gorai, chef and entrepreneur, Raymond Andrews, founder Biryani Blues, Varun Puri, director Imli and Duty Free, Anshul Khandelwal, Head of Marketing, Category and Revenue, Ola Foods. Our session lead and moderator for this session is Ame Marathe, Culinary Head, Paradise Food Court and VP, Telangana Chefs Association. Over to you, Mr. Ame.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah. Hi. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening. So lovely to be here, and the previous session was also beautiful. A lot of learnings, and to start with the session, welcome to all the panelists for the next session. And I would like to ask the first question to Chef Sabi. That is, how can restaurants and chefs introduce food safety with the current post-COVID opening we are looking at? Chef Sabi, are you there? Okay, I think Chef Sabi is maybe lost his connection. Meantime, can I ask Varun also to take the same question and what he's looking at through his restaurants?
Hi, Ame.
Hi.
Hi, Raymond. Hi, everyone. So everyone has been listening to us. So hospitality is a very important industry for the country. Just to give you little numbers and little stats about, what we actually work for. We contribute to 2% of the country's GDP, the entire hospitality industry. And I'm talking about only the sector. Those are registered sectors. There are a lot of sectors that work haywire. The numbers are not recorded to us. We contribute. We're the second highest employer of the human capital. We are looking at 7 million people. Which is second largest in the country next to agriculture. So we are a very big industry that way. And unfortunately, this industry, alongside travel, which hasn't got any support from the government of India. We were hoping for some sort of stimulus package. We were sorting some sort of relaxations, and very sad at the stage we are that we haven't got any sort of relief from the higher authorities up there. Could I also get your question now? I just logged in.
Yeah. So the question was how restaurants and chefs can introduce food safety in post-COVID time. And, I'm sure if Delhi is opening up tomorrow, you must have had some plans. So how you guys are planning to take food safety as a team and as a restaurant?
Yes, you'll be surprised to know that this news of us opening tomorrow just came to us, I think, about a couple of hours back. And so getting ready on a 24-hour notice is practically impossible in our industry.
Right.
Because we've been shut down for over 70 days. We were literally knocked out of the restaurant. We were confined to our homes, and as I said before, the restaurants are in a pretty bad shape. The entire infrastructure has gone for a toss. The restaurant which used to cater to the amazing patrons has been catering to all the rats and insects, and they have sort of sheltered their homes in our restaurants. And so it requires it requires a lot of it has to go through a tremendous process of us cleaning it in and out, to making sure that it is back to be open to the public. So the biggest question that we face right now is to bring the confidence back to the people. People are pretty shaken up. Every day we see numbers going off the roof. The patients are increasing, and unfortunately, there are no beds in the hospitals. There are people who are waiting for tests to happen, and they've been given days. They've been given 3 days notice to come back and get the test. And so it's a very horrific stage right now in the country. And amid all this, we've been told to open the restaurant. So I frankly don't know if, provided we do everything possible remotely here to bring back the customer, to bring the confidence, from us practicing all the necessary measures told by government, from making a 6 feet distance between a table to other, like do gaj ka duri, which our respected prime minister has been announcing, from hand sanitizing, using the mask by the waiters, using the Arogya Setu app before you letting a customer come into the restaurant, to live streaming your kitchen, to the to sending food with zero contact deliveries. We're ready to do all that. But my biggest concern is, which is the only question I've been asking myself today entire day from the time announcement has come, is will there be enough takers? Will customers actually step out? Because I mean, all we hear right now is in our locality the numbers are increasing, in the city the cases are coming every day, and now it's coming at a proportion which is huge. And in this time we've been told to open the restaurant. So I think it's a very shocking sight right now for me personally. Given the chance, I mean, I talk about my restaurant. We own 20 odd restaurants over Delhi, Gurgaon, Noida, Hyderabad, Chandigarh. So my clear stand as of now is that we are not ready to open the restaurant. My stand to our investors, my stand to our employees, my stand to our landlords, be it the great DLF Mall of India people or anyone across the city and the country, is that we are not ready to go back there. Because we are not just we're not just opening the restaurant, we're opening a lot of risk for the people, for the patrons, for the people who are going to come and work there. I mean, you imagine a person coming to your restaurant, you might scan him, you might check his temperature, you might do everything remotely possible right now to see that he is asymptomatic. But we still don't have the figures, we still don't have the numbers about the infection, because this infection, sorry, I just got a call. So this infection has happened first time in the human history. So no one knows, we don't have a medicine yet, so we're looking at a situation wherein if someone has dined in your restaurant and the person has tested positive later, you would look at shutting down your restaurant for 14 days. Your entire restaurant goes on quarantine. Your entire staff goes in quarantine. Forget all that. All the people who have dined in your restaurant in those 3, 4, 5, 10 days, you need to call each and every one and let them know that that this has happened in our restaurant and you need to go into quarantine. And so we're looking at numbers which is beyond imagination. So I think it's a lot of risk right now which we're looking at, and I'm happy to say that we're not yet going back there. I mean, it sounds very lucrative. Open the restaurant, 70 days, we are out of the business. But I think for me, for my company, for my people, it's not the time yet.
Right, Varun. Chef Sabi, I just can you add on how chefs are looking to add and bring in food safety aspect into the restaurants and our industry post-COVID?
Thank you, Amit. Completely, resonate what Varun just said. It's extremely disheartening, and we were all going through this. As in, I am a chef and a part entrepreneur, and I think the entrepreneur side has to take a backseat for a while, or there's really no choice. And Varun, I'm sorry, man, it's crazy. What you just said is absolutely true, and there's no way that I'm going to be ready. I have 3 restaurants in Delhi NCR, and I don't think I'm going to be ready to open. I'm going to speak more on this, the food safety part of it from the chef's perspective, because there's a lot of other discussion that will happen. I'm sure everybody will bring in their point. So I am doing small takeaways, gourmet deliveries from my home kitchen or from my office kitchen. And I think provenance is very critical right now. We really need to know traceability of ingredients. So I am working a lot with frozen products. I'm working mostly all my meat, fish and seafood, everything I'm working with frozen branded products. I'm not looking at the fresh market at all right now. The costs have gone up considerably. Anyway, the ingredient costs have gone up quite a bit, if you've noticed. And obviously, if you're working with frozen branded products, like I'm working with Norwegian salmon, US poultry, which is from Usupec, the chicken quarters, leg quarters, they're all definitely much more expensive than the ingredients. As of now, they're available, and I'm told the consignments will keep coming. So traceability of ingredients, so is I moved totally to canned tomatoes, because it's very small quantity, only 20-30 portions, and it's only for a gourmet segment, so I can probably afford it. But that's not really how a restaurant is going to work, right? We all know that that's not how it is going to work going ahead. But let's say for the time being, if I can bridge the gap and do something, also keep myself busy. Storage of ingredients has become very critical. We constantly talk about sanitizing and disinfecting. So how do you store ingredients and food and make sure it is safe for consumption, and nobody is accessing those areas, or people are not touching them in a way where they're not supposed to be touched, be it fresh produce, be it dry grocery provision. The challenge is more with fresh, not so much with frozen and dry. sanitation, as in the handlers sanitation of that's something that we've been constantly discussing when it comes so I'm going to just add the point of hygiene and sanitation together for the handlers because I'm speaking more purely from a chef's perspective, so I'm not going to go and say how the service part, because in the previous one I discussed a lot, and I'm sure we're going to discuss further on how the contactless. Nusra also mentioned that a while back, that how the contactless dining is going to happen and things like that. Anyway, so coming back to again the food safety part of it, I would stress upon frozen, which is frozen is the new fresh. So as much as I could move to frozen spinach, frozen peas, frozen protein items, canned tomatoes, I have done that. More to kind of also not be in a stress factor after giving out food, to feel that maybe I've given something which has not been handled well. I don't know the provenance, I don't know the traceability, people who have handled it and things like that. Cold chain is something, again, I think would have to really, we have been fairly good with our cold chain now. India has been improving, but I think this is really the time when we need to relook at it and maybe get into that very seriously, because there is definitely a demand of food that could now be looked upon as cooked in a facility which is almost like a factory facility, which is hygiene, which is handled mostly with mechanics, robotics, and basically not really touched like a lot of the food factories, like let's say how a Jubilant would work, or how some of these other factories work, where food could be made and flash frozen, IQF, conveyor freezing and things like that, and maybe sent across through the cold chain. So I feel it is going to be, let's say we've only used, let's say, frozen parathas or frozen puff pastries or some frozen vegetables, but I think that process or that kind of a thought process can be now applied to even cooked food. Some of the supermarkets has, let's say, a teriyaki chicken ball or something like that, which you can do it, which you can bring and eat. But I think that could be also the future of back-ending restaurants. I strongly feel a lot of restaurants, caterings, large caterings may not be the gourmet segment. I know if I say this to Aditi, she will laugh that a mass can't serve frozen food made somewhere else. But let's say a lot of the restaurants could go into that direction, where food could be made by a processor or an aggregator, frozen and sent through cold chains. Now, I would just summarize this, and then whenever everybody's done, maybe I can come back again. My last point is that I feel this is a time when we should all join hands, because everybody has some strength. As unique as we would like to stay, because we are all individuals, we have an expression, we are artists. As chefs and entrepreneurs, we like to see our individuality, like Varun spoke about his restaurants. But I think today everybody has some strength and a lot of other weaknesses, and the weakness is something that we don't know how to fight. We can't even fight. It's not something that we used to, which he also stressed upon, that it's not something that we know how to fight. So let's bring in our strengths. So if we work like a assembly line, let's say somebody does a particular job and be very good at it. So it's in terms of let's say sourcing, let's say storing, let's say basic prep, let's say some part of the cooking, let's say somebody's just doing the breads and bakery, somebody's just doing meat. So then you divide your work where the focus on that particular is so high that it is really safe, and the entire chain, nose to tail, nothing has ever broken, there's no chance of contamination. And then this assembly style could be brought together in one place where everybody uses this, right? So let's say if you're handling the meat, I'm handling the veggies, and then we all share it amongst each other, and then we know how. So this is just a wild thought, but this is what I think could be one of the solutions.
Right. Thank you, Chef. I would like to move to Mr. Bector now, and since Chef just talked about assembly line, I think Cremica is one company where we all have used their products, and I would like to ask Mr. Bector the importance and managing the traceability and recalls of the products, and what he would like to share upon that.
So thank you for calling me. Just a second. Yeah. So, the current situation actually brings about a lot of challenges for the restaurant industry. And I think the panelists have already mentioned how do you, first and foremost, I would want to address a very basic issue which nobody has thought of, is, a person coming in and maybe he's a possible potential contact, okay? So how is the Arogya Setu app working? A person may be notified after a week or two of coming into contact with someone that he's at risk and he needs to quarantine himself. So the app turns from green to orange. What happens in a restaurant when a person is visiting you? So the chances of a restaurant being able to run with the current situation of the Arogya Setu app, most of the employees in the restaurant on the service side may tend to become orange, even if they are, not having any issue, just because somebody in the restaurant visited has been in close proximity for a fair amount of time. So that's one challenge, and I'm hoping, I hope that there will be some resolution to that, because very soon after opening, this challenge will come up. But coming back to food safety vis-a-vis COVID, Chef Sabyasachi is very rightfully said that there's a need to rethink the whole way in which food is going to be cooked and served to customer. And since we in our factory do a lot of uncooked products, and our protocols vis-a-vis germ control, we've been addressing some of these issues as an ongoing process in our plant. So we've been, developing protocols internally for ourselves. We've issued some guidelines for customers, which may have been, shared by the staff to various people. Till now, we have not concentrated on the front end, but largely on the back end of the restaurant. So I think there are things that we need to do. First of all the things that Chef Gorai said have to be done, which means that you have to try and reduce the exposure to too many products in the kitchen. The biggest source of a problem, apart from the customer side and the Arogya Setu, I don't see an issue with people getting infected directly from customers that much, because a lot of protocols will get enforced. But the bigger issue is going to be in raw material handling. The large amount of, one day when studies will be done on how COVID spread in India, one thing that's going to come out is that it largely spread from the vegetable market. And I can share with you a personal experience with all the people attending this webinar today, that I had the occasion to share this thought of mine with the Secretary Health in Punjab, Chief Secretary, who's in charge of this operation. He very quickly implemented a program of very strict control on the vegetable markets. And I can tell you that Punjab, if it is safe today, it's largely because of that the vegetables in Punjab have become safe. So the first thing that restaurant owners will have to, because you will still have to deal with some fresh produce, is how do you handle your fresh produce? How do you handle your other products which are coming into the restaurant? What are the receipt protocols? How do you sanitize them? How is the person who's receiving them? How well is he trained? How well is he sanitizing himself? And is everything that is going into the store reasonably assured? Which means that it should have, at the pre-receipt stage, gone through a chlorine wash. It should have gone through a alcoholic spray or a UVC exposure, or maybe a 2-3 day rest period as required by the packaging that has been used. So one of the first things that people will have to design is on the receipt side, and an absolute segregation of the staff which is receiving the goods from the kitchen. The kitchen staff will likewise have to be segregated from the service staff. So there should be dividing lines, Lakshman Rekhas, that should be between these two areas, so that people are not touching each other and not risking the whole establishment. I think the third thing that people have to be very careful about is that once a person is visiting a restaurant, what is the table going to be like of the future? So apart from, the raw materials and the other things, significant change is going to happen on the table surface. You will not be able to place anything on the table. The table has to be sanitized. It's impossible to sanitize a fresh bottle of ketchup on the table. So all your condiments, your salt dispensers, your putting of napkins or cutlery on the table is gone. So that's one thing. How it is being served is one thing. used utensil being picked up. I think we have to learn from the Udupi restaurants and segregate everything. And I think those are the kind of steps that customers will see and get the confidence that this establishment is giving me a reasonable, we can't give 100% assurance to anyone, but if we can give a reasonable assurance to a person that things have changed post-COVID, I think that it would help us to get some of the business back. It's a very, very challenging situation, and the government has given absolutely no relief, which is shocking. I mean, nowhere in the world has something like this happened. So there is no choice but to get back, with business, with all the efforts that one needs to make. These are some of the things that I've highlighted. We've been thinking through what all things we need to do. The biggest challenge that I'm seeing today is because the systems internal to the restaurant will get made. The Arogya Setu app is going to be the big challenge because it requires people to stay at home the moment it turns orange. I would also seriously recommend people to try and install UVC lights in their air conditioning, ducts of adequate strength, so that the air which is circulating within the restaurant, so long as UVC light is not exposed to humans, it will kill almost most germs. While COVID-19 is not yet tested on UVC light, but the chances of it not acting on this particular virus is very, very low. And it doesn't cost much. It may also help to put UVC lights in restaurants for sanitation of all surfaces, because your alcoholic sprays and others will not reach everywhere, will not be able to reach in the crevices, into the coverings of the furniture, etc. But a UVC light, if it's left on in a room, exposing any surface with it, will kill any germ or virus on it. So they could be used in the hours after the restaurant is shut off or before it is opened. So these are some of the things that people will have to do. We can take as much care as it is possible, but I don't think that there's a choice, and the government also doesn't seem to have a choice but to allow restaurants to open at this stage, and it's a very risky situation. So, but I don't see any option. The only way out is to build the systems and go with the flow. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for your information, sir. It was very, very informative. And, as we are seeing that, dine-in is going to be one thing where people are going to be looking at with cautious eyes. And I don't know how much dine-in we expect. And that is where I think the food delivery sector is going to grow big. And, I would like to go to Raymond and ask him how they are ensuring safe packaging and delivery in terms of food delivery, since you are more or so in food delivery sector.
Yes, thanks, Amit. So we do a certain mix of delivery and dine-in, but right now we've probably not been off for even a single day since the lockdown started. We've traditionally been working, because we are a large-scale operation and work out of 40 locations. We've traditionally been working with a lot of organized back-end processors, right? Including some bit with Kanika. We work with the ITC Vista, we work with Nestle and other. So a lot of these brands are already following the whole traceability piece. We've gone to the factories. It's as good as any international company would be keeping the processes. Right. So a lot of pre-mixed marinades, a lot of cut chopped vegetables already sanitized, packed. Right. So those are the processes we've always been following. Coming to the COVID-19 situation post this, I think a lot of our emphasis has been on ensuring tamper-proof packaging, ensuring our staff is trained and empathetic with the staff also, because they themselves, for them to get back to work and feel confident that their employer is going to protect them or going to give them the confidence to actually come and work in a good environment where he's not scared and he's not being forced to work, I think was very important. A lot of these people do not understand the whole concept of this, and some of them are paranoid of certain interactions, right? So I think transparency in communication and reiterating the fact that you are your own protector and that you have to ensure your own safety standards is very critical, and giving them the necessary tools, which would include a mask, your gloves, your eye goggles, your head net, and everything. Right. So our staff has been delivering, and thankfully, I'd say that post the small incident which happened in mid of April, since May onwards, the food delivery business has started inching back slowly. Unlike the Western world, where uh, people do not cook at home or people are not efficient or having kitchens in their homes, the food delivery market shot up by almost 40% in certain aggregators there, right, with DoorDash and Uber Eats. But in India, that's not happened. So we are still struggling at a 35% of its original delivery numbers. Uh, and according to probably Zomato and Swiggy, almost 30% restaurants who were on the platform will probably never come back because they've either gone bankrupt or they do not see a future anymore. At these times, I think it is very critical for the restaurants that continue to service. There's going to be a lower demand, so you will have to do rostering, manage people's employees' expectations, probably keeps them for 15 days on, 15 days off, and let the others also work so that nobody's losing their jobs, and train them and empathize with them if at all they're having any issues. Make them feel confidence in sharing if they're ever having any health problem, if they're having a cough or a cold, right? Because there's a lot of stigma also against this, right? So even if God forbid somebody gets uh, infected, be it for any reason, and everybody I think is going to know somebody who had a case, right? Eventually, it's like Varun shared, it's going up in the colonies and everything, right? I think there's a lot of stigma against the whole concept of it, because of which people might not disclose, even if they are ill, and might try to turn up at work, right? So you have to give them the confidence that you are protected, you can stay at home, we will take care, so that at least people start speaking up, and we are able to take necessary action if at all something happens. I think good training protocols for people after work hours is also very important, which we have done. We made some protocols as to how do you interact with people when you go back home in your after hours, right? Because the next day you're going to come back to shift, and no large gatherings, no venturing out unnecessarily, right? So it's a period, I think, at least for the next 3 months to 6 months, we will have to put more of our efforts, energy, and thinking on making people be more aware of the situation. And I think if people are aware and they come empathetically and they come motivated to make this turnaround and make the business come back, will be more important than us trying to impose protocols. Because end of the day, a lot of them are blue collar job people. You put too many protocols, it's met with resistance, and probably they might even go back. Right? So you have to really guide them and make them walk through, make them feel as a part of the team, to implement all the protocols. The protocols, I'm sure all of us restaurateurs will make our own SOPs and processes on sanitizing the frequently used areas, wearing the right clothes, maintaining the distance. All of that will, I'm sure all of us will work out those modules. But getting the buy-in, I think, is very critical, and also giving them the confidence that if something were to go wrong, we are there for them as employers. I think those are the two things that probably will add. On the delivery piece, like I said, tamper-proof packaging is one, and cooked food, more or less, at least in our business, it is cooked at 200 degrees plus. So once it's cooked, it's shipped and packed in tamper-proof packaging. And I think that interim piece of the packer and the dispatcher is very closely monitored, and everything is under video surveillance. So we have a Q&A guy who's also looking at it all the time. All of those is available now. I in fact heard of some restaurant who's giving live tracking of their order, where you can actually get into the restaurant's video network and see the order being packed, which I think is a very extreme situation. But I think today tools are available if you really want to track and trace, and everything is online. So your payments, your dining is contactless, your payments on Paytm, PhonePe, and all of these options are available. SMS links are available. So interaction uh, can be actually minimized. It can actually be contactless. It's not just a myth. But in a dine-in situation, it will be very difficult to actually implement the service piece. But all the payment and the ordering can completely be contactless.
Right. I also wanted to check, what is our take or your take on hygiene cess? I've seen automobile sector started applying this hygiene cess in their bills. Are we also looking at something like that in our industry? And specifically, if I have to ask with your organizations or organizations like us, are we looking at hygiene cess and how we are looking to get that done?
Yeah, it depends. See, it depends on the brand and its positioning and a lot of that, right? If you're positioned as a value for money brand, or if you're positioned as a delivery centric brand, adding such sessions is a big shocker, a sticker at the end of the customer trying to order, right? So there's a big drop off on the menu. You rather increase your menu price itself, than have a lot of these packaging charges and menu hygiene tests and delivery charge, because uh, it will reduce your conversion rates. I think if
Right.
you build that price into the product, if you add a 10 rupees to your product pricing, I don't think it will cost too much for all the disposables you would probably use, rather than putting this as an additional sales. That's my view. But there is a cost that's going to come in, and I think how you position it is up to each brand. Some
Right.
premium brands might be able to put it because that will be a small part of the overall bill, but the bill values are probably over 700 or 1000. For smaller delivery focused brands, it may not make sense.
Right, right. And doing all this, what we need at the end is our teams, and that is one area where we all are going to face challenge or already facing with our teams. And I would like to go to Anshul and ask how you guys are developing and leading effective food safety teams with your organization.
Yeah, hi. So I don't know if a lot of people even know about what we do. So Ola is known for mobility, and hence probably very little people know about our food business. So Ola Foods is again a house of brands with about 3 to 4 brands right now, with about 40 locations across the country, which will be planning to expand to about 200 kitchens and about 8 to 10 brands in the future, and probably build India's largest house of brands born out of India. As far as safety, food safety, etc., is concerned, I think most of you have covered pretty much everything. I would like to kind of add to it 2 things to it. One is the importance of technology, and second is the importance of communication. I think while all of us are going to implement safety protocols, etc., there is nothing new there. For us, for example, at Ola Foods, we implement something called 8-edge safety, which is more a marketing terminology for it, but it is a 8-step process across sanitization of kitchen, personal safety, safe storage of raw materials, systemic cleaning of vegetables, safe management of cooked food, etc. So there, we have actually published a detailed document which has been approved by the regulatory bodies, by UNICEF, by WHO, etc. And in fact, we are going to put it out for open source for everyone to use and see if they need any help there. But apart from that, which is I think table stakes now, there's no point of talking about how you're going to take care of safety. What is more important is one, how do you communicate this? Because in dine-in, obviously, it's fairly easy for people to see that in front of their eyes. While for dine-out and delivery, it's going to be extremely difficult for people to even trust you on what you're saying. And even for dine-out, I feel that apart from just talking about it is way more important. You can do a lot of things. Everybody will do a lot of things. But when everybody is doing something, the only differentiator is how do you communicate it well. And hence the importance of communication becomes even higher in this case. You should be able to creatively communicate what measures are you taking to instill transparency and honesty. And also on the other side, I think all the communication around food currently is very functional and negative in nature, where all of us are just talking about the virus, about the safety, about sanitization. I think what the industry has forgotten, or rather I would urge the industry, is to not forget what food is all about. If food is essentially at the end of the day about the good times and emotion, customers are aware of all of this. They are as educated and informed about the safety sanitization concerns. But at the same time, if you also talk about and bring good memories and talk about food and the taste and quality as such, it is equally important. You cannot keep sustaining on talking about safety for the next 2 months. This is going to be over in the next, let's say, 1, 2, 3 months. By Diwali or so, your communication should change. That's number one. Number two is technology. Like all of us are saying that it will involve a lot of cost in implementing all of this. For us, for example, we have invested in technology which will give us results in the future while the upfront cost might be very high. For example, live streaming of kitchens. Second is using artificial intelligence to via video technology to actually monitor what all is happening in the kitchen without having to personally monitor each and every kitchen and each and every member. So just for an example, the AI tool on top of the video camera will actually record whether you are wearing a mask, whether you're wearing a hat, whether you're using a sanitizer. All of the steps which are possible to monitor will be monitored through technology. And this is the layer of information which you can easily pass on to the customer in form of data, which he will be able to see and hence instill more trust. So I think beyond just implementing SOPs, use of technology and the proper use of communication to get people back is also going to be of utmost importance. And also this investment in technology is an asset you're building for long term and not just for short term. And hence this is an opportunity. The last thing I want to talk about is innovation on going beyond the current business models. I think we are fairly stuck to what we have been doing and trying to figure out how do we get that back, which is fine, which is the core of your business. But there are larger consumer behavioral trends emerging on which you need to act, and whoever acts on it right now and makes it big enough is going to get a lead in the overall industry, which is, I can just some examples in terms of how we are the the trends of people cooking at home is something which is actually good for us in the sense that being a restaurant or a food player, you know what goes into cooking, and your job should be actually to help people do that at home. They are not going to eat out 100% of the time. 90% of the eating occasions when they're cooking at home, how can you be a part of that journey? Whether it is through ready to cook food, whether it is through just examples on curries, paste, and there are a lot of other innovations possible where you actually take the toil out of cooking and be an ally for the consumer. So there are multiple such innovations and categories possible where restaurants can also pitch in apart from just the dining business. So these are the three sort of points I'd like to make on technology, on communication, and the new opportunities which are emerging out of it.
Great insights, Anshul. And that brings me back to my next question to Chef Savvy, as you're closely associated with IFCA. What IFCA and the chef fraternity is doing in terms of this new normal, and I'm sure you would like to touch upon about the frozen thing which IFCA did recently.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing hearing everybody, and there's so much to actually learn. I know, as in we keep hearing it, but I guess every time we hear more and there's more, insight on so many subject on the same subject, and there's so many different points of view that comes up. So I guess I was keenly listening to all the other speakers. Thank you so much, everybody. So far as IFCA, which is the Federation of the Chefs Association of India, it's a national body. It is the head of the chapters of all the Chefs Association, and today we know that the chefs are the key members, or the opinion leaders, or the leaders of the food industry, especially the professional food industry. Of course, we're parallelly seeing this home food, home chef delivery as a major emerging trend, but until recently, it was always the chefs who was cooking, leading these large five-star hotels, top-notch restaurants, catering businesses, like yourself also. But yes, I think IFCA has been instrumental in at least communicating and breaking as much myth as possible, because the scare and the fear is very, very high that food would take, it would transmit through food, or there'll be contamination through food. So there have been some conflicting kind of discussions. Large part of the time I am hearing that food can be contaminated, and large part of the time I'm hearing that it would need a living body for it to transmit.
Right.
So that confusion is always there. This seminar that IFCA did, and I was part of that, and of course we all had different subjects to speak on, but frozen is the new fresh was the subject, and largely toyed with the idea of how we can use the entire cold chain facility that we already have, and use the frozen food options that we are there, which comes in through large aggregators, like we spoke about Nestle, we spoke about Kohinoor, we spoke about Jubilant. There's so many other players like that in the market. So if that could be utilized to support the large hotels and the restaurants, and then bring in maybe some innovation into that, wherein you bring in more recipes, or bring in ideas, or bring in ready to cook food. Of course, ready to eat is an option, but bring in ready to cook, which also earlier as chefs we never thought of it, right? We always thought we wanted to do everything handmade, and it's a touch and feel. And today we realize that's probably the biggest challenge and the biggest problem. The touch and feel has to go away. So that emotion attached to food, where you touch it, you feel it, you cook with your own hands, that itself is the biggest bummer today. So that's why this seminar on frozen is the new fresh, but to just tell people that see as many options as you can, come with as many ideas as you feel you can contribute. We all share it. If you have something that you already know and you're already working upon, like I said, let's all join hands, let's bring it onto the table and see how we can collaborate and make it as safe as possible so far as the end user is concerned, as in the diners are concerned.
Right, right. So yeah, I think that is going to be the new thing, frozen, pre-packed stuff and multiple new avenues which everyone will look at. And I think, I would go back to Mr. Bector again to check if as a, brand, what new things they are planning to bring into the market. Sir, if you have any plans, what new things you're going to do?
I'll take it on from where Mr. Sabyasachi is, left us vis-a-vis, the need for a lot of things to change in the way we serve food or cook food. The bigger challenge is actually going to be capacity, because a lot of the restaurant industry is going to move towards this very quickly. The big issue is going to be in terms of capacity and ability to handle, the sudden change in the requirements. Imagine, suddenly there's no bottle of ketchup on the table and everything needs to move to portion pack.
Right.
Nobody has the capacity to go for that kind of a change. So one is going to be, how do we meet the certain changes? Of course, there are a lot of solutions that Cremica has always been building, towards this premise. They were not being used because of various, I would say, are not being used as much as we would want them to be, for perhaps sometimes economic reasons or perceived economic reasons. I don't think that those solutions are expensive. I think they are in the long run much, much cheaper and far more, they'll give far more consistent quality and savings in overall operations than people can imagine. So a lot more solutions will come for as and when restaurants come forward and demand it. But I think the big issue right now is going to be, can we just suddenly switch over to the new way in which we are going to operate in the industry? And I would advise all the our worthy customers and colleagues here to take a look at supply chains. This is going to be a time when the bigger challenge is going to be, how do we meet the requirements for the future? You expect to see most of these lines doing frozen food might be a few tons an hour. Can you try and imagine the quantum of food that restaurants serve as a whole? And if everybody wants to certainly move to frozen, I don't think there's capacity, to even meet a little bit of that demand. Right. So yes, a few new things will be done, but I think largely the menus will also, change around what in the earlier seminar, the few minutes that I was there, I could hear Ritu say, is that the menus will have to also get redesigned to face some of these challenges. So some of the, dishes that we were serving may go off the menu, etc. And I also feel that the new environment may require us to rethink menus in terms of how much sugar is going into the food, etc. Because as diabetes is suddenly becoming a very important topic linked to COVID mortality, there will be a need for restaurants to redesign their food so that it becomes more friendly to current health requirements. So these are some of the things that I'm expecting restaurants to, change because of the environment. From the company standpoint, we will end up with a lot more portion packs. We will end up with a lot more cooking solutions. We are going to end up with a lot of ready to eat. We have at Cremica, actually, we have a very large amount of unutilized capacity in this side, because we have one of the best lines to do sterilized food, but we've not been in the market because the market at the retail side has always been very small. Those are the big change that has come about over there too. But I do see this change coming in the food service industry, and to some extent we will play a role over there. But I don't think that even our large capacity is as large as the industrial requirement is. It's a pretty mind-boggling situation. Um, and the real solution is going to be, in these small things, that how are we going to safely handle our raw materials? How are we going to handle our documents? Any kind of document? How do we manage Arogya Setu so that it doesn't, indicate us as at risk? So these are, I think, the bigger challenges that we should look at in the phase one. And as things move forward, of course, what panelists have said will happen for sure.
Right, thank you so much, Mr. Bector. We'll be taking some questions now, and if Mr. Sumit Rauniar, are you here? If you are there, please unmute and ask your question. Sumit Rauniar, are you here? Okay, so I'll ask the question on behalf of him.
Hello.
Yeah, Sumit.
Yeah, I got it. Yes. First of all, thanks everyone for their wonderful enlightenment. And we are a packaging partners to major of restaurants and sweet shops here in Delhi NCR. And my question is like, since last 1.5 years, there has been transition due to no plastic move and all. And the other sustainable or biodegradable options which we have, these are mostly import oriented, and that too from our good friend China. So means how do you take this means in these challenging times when imports are very difficult and the transition is already going on, restaurants were facing challenge, kitchens were already facing challenges due to this non-plastic thing. How do you see that? And mostly means I'll open it to all panelists, majorly Mr. Raymond and Mr. Varun Puri. So means if they can give some comments on this.
Raymond, would you like to take this question up? You're on mute. Raymond, you're on mute.
Yeah, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Thanks, Sumit. Yeah, it's a challenge that we've all been, I think, working with for some time. We've done a lot of our research on, sugarcane extract, bagasse, and paper, biodegradable, and everything. Uh, Frankly, nothing as reliable, sturdy, and tamper-proof as plastic yet that we've been able to find. Our paper and all the other things. Yes, in India, there's very less opportunity to see all of this available at a price that works for this industry. Right? While you import it from our, like you said, good friend China, it becomes a lot more viable, and the quality also is a little more sturdy. Going forward, I think that considering that the consumption itself is going to take a beating for a while, we will have time to sit and innovate some more with both local manufacturers and otherwise on what we can do. I think paper is the least harmful to the environment and most biodegradable, but when it comes to gravies, it becomes a challenge unless you're using very high quality laminate, which any low quality laminate has the same risk or even more than plastic. So I think that's some place we will evolve to. But considering that volumes are going to be less and people are going to be ordering, I think whatever warehousing and stocks people already have is going to take some time to actually go. And in that meantime, we will also sit and evolve and think as a country. And with the Prime Minister calling for local, say vocal, I think a lot of manufacturers will start innovating on this. If not, we were very traditionally only importing standard molds that were made internationally and brought in here, right? So you would have just a 250 ml, 600 ml, 1000 ml box that came in a rectangular shape or a circular shape, and that's what everyone got to use. But I think with time and with people having more bandwidth to think and numbers falling, we will all work towards building the right packaging that's both eco-friendly and probably workable in an Indian environment.
Great, Raymond. Next question is from Mr. Sachin Prakash. Mr. Sachin, are you here? If you're here, you can unmute and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Mr. Sachin, we can hear.
Yeah, this question is like to the entire panel. There are a lot of things right now coming as a contactless dining, contactless menu and payments, and contactless valet also that Dinout has come out with. We are a small restaurant. How feasible it is for us to invest in such products right now when we are facing cash crunch to even pay salaries or to get our inventory as such? How do you think these new products should we take them right away, or should we wait? I want your opinion on this.
Mr. Varun, would you like to take this over?
Yeah, so I think it's a pretty relevant question, and in the current situation, because uh, we already are facing survival crisis in the current situation, and to top them up, we have all the cost which the question has been about, that there'll be all this commission that our third party vendors would be looking at. You look at takeaway menus, you look at contactless valet, you look at contactless service. So I think all these things right now would definitely will be incurring cost, but they are essential right now. Essential to the sense that all these steps are the tools to basically win the trust back of the customer. The biggest concern and the biggest challenge that we are facing right now, which I call the survival crisis. There are reports coming in that 40% of the restaurants that used to operate will not be there anymore. All the best of the best restaurants across the world, which serve gourmet cuisines, you won't see them anymore, like French laundries and etc. and so on. Because people will be wise now to spend. People have obviously been burning on all their savings in last 3 months, and obviously no one will be looking right now at doing the luxury spend, and our industry is considered to be sort of a celebration, and excitements come in with the restaurants. So definitely, all these steps right now, all these tools that I say right now becomes essential for us to win back the customer confidence. When we're looking last 3 months, everyone's cooking amazing dishes at their homes. I think biggest challenge we face right now, Chef Savvy would second me that. All his recipes have been taken on, and people are making amazing food home. My wife, who never cooked the entire life, she's making amazing dishes at house. So it's a welcome change right now that we see. We've got biggest competition right in the houses. Forget restaurants, forget Raymond's biryani takeaway. All these recipes being picked from YouTube, internet, and people are making amazing dishes with even stellar presentations. So I think. So I'll go back to the question. That I think all these kind of sort of cost, which are initial costs right now, we have to kind of bear the brunt and take the way they come up. And all I can do is, we can through the amazing panel that I have, through the amazing channel network we have of Franchise India, all we can do is we can request all the third party right now, like Dine Out of late recently has waived off a lot of charges. So I think it's about our negotiation with the third party vendors. It's about we reaching out to them. It's about they being little empathical right now. And I think it's personal negotiation at the end of the day. Be it Zomato offering contactless dining, be it the Dine Out, or be it the third parties, they're offering various programs, from a contactless valet to a contactless menu to the payments. I think it's about negotiation that my friend who has asked us this question, he has to get into. And I think for next 2-3 years, everyone, because this is something, COVID-19 has happened not to me, not to Sabi, not to Raymond. It has happened to the entire world. All of us are in the same boat. We are facing crisis at every place, from be it work, be it home, be it the country, be it the city, be it the state, be it the hospitals, be it the schools. So I think everyone has to come together, you know, talk to each other, understand the situation, tell them our concerns. And I think third party or whosoever right now, other aggregators, would also have to kind of agree to us and bring the certain costs down, maybe for say 3 months, 4 months, by Diwali, by the celebration time, where we look at to bounce back. Because as of now, the next 3 to 4 months are the months where I think we're gonna majorly end up spending all our reserves, from getting our staff back. The biggest problem that I see right now is all the amazing cooks, all the service people have been sent back. Government gave them options to travel back. They were complimentary travel. I mean, some went back through trains, some went back through the buses, obviously being sponsored by the state and the center, depending upon which state they survived, they reside in. But now who's going to get them back to the city? I mean, the cost is going to obviously come to us. They have no money left to them, and state is not going to bring them back. I mean, it was easier to send them out of the city because of the whatever reason that better known to our government. So I think this is going to be another added cost to us to get them back to the city, get them shelters, and get them proper hygiene and tools and all of that. I think we'll be facing existent crisis as of the industry is concerned.
Thanks, Arun. The next question is from Mr. Inder Negi. Mr. Inder, if you are there, please unmute and ask your question.
Hello, everybody. Honorable panels. I would just like to, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. My question is that, see, we have restaurants, we have hotels in hill station, that's in Uttarakhand. I can understand that the panel, whatever you people are talking about, maybe for the metros or the other, urban areas which are well known, connected with the roads and all that. But here in especially the area where we do have our own setup and all that, that basically in hills and all, and we have our presence, especially we are depending 100% on tourism. Until unless the tourism doesn't have, we are not going to survive. And if I see down the line by another, I can say 40 days, 60 days, we are not going to see any changes in this particular fortune. My submission to you is that what should we do in terms of retaining, or to say rightly, one of the person has the panelists has said that the trained, I'm talking about the chef and the trained staffs and all that, they're already gone, and I don't know whether they will be in a position to come back. So it's purely how do you foresee this particular situation? What should we do? Shall we take it as our opportunity, or shall we take it as something that's really we should look for some changes, relocations, or should say, because rightly our entire savings got, I'm talking about exhausted, we don't have any inflows, and even the workers, the staffs, it's also gone. Now, how to get all those things, and what's the panel, I'm talking about all you people are experienced. So how do you suggest, sir, what should we exactly do into that? Because Raymond's, Miani, and other people, that they have their good exposures and all, but please guide us, because to run a hotel, to run a restaurant chain, where I can say in a one restaurant only, in a particular 1 month, we used to have our say 40 to 50 lakhs revenue in a month. And because we are totally depending on tourists and all that. Rightly, if that particular thing has gone, and especially in hills area, like I don't see maybe in mid of 2021 we can see any change, because this particular seasons, as we call in our hills regions, say till up to August, we used to call it as a hills season, for especially for the tourism inflow. But we don't see this thing, because this year has gone. But our other costs and all that's remain the same. And even rightly what Varun has said, all other expenses, they are not going to get down. They are going to pile up more. So how to...
Chef Sabi, would you like to answer this question?
It's very unfortunate. I don't think I have an answer. I don't think anybody really has a answer for this entire. It's a trauma, and we are like all we can say that we are all in it together. I never believed in rejoicing in anybody else's misfortune. I always believed in seeing what is good in me or what is happening good around me. There's a lot of a lot of misery right now as we see in the world, right? So I don't want to really focus on it. I would again tell this gentleman, sir, if you can, just see what are your strengths. Where if we, I think one of the panelists mentioned that it is good time to see what else could you do with. There are certain opportunities also in everything that is happening. What else? Let's say I am a cook. I cook well. Can I do anything else? So I've been also thinking the same, as in, like I said, I have no solution. At the same time, I'm also seeing what else, trying to dig within and see what else could I do with my skill set, my knowledge, my experience, people, the small team that is left in my office, because restaurants, we've all shut down all of them. And like Varun again rightly said, we don't know when they're going to come back. We don't know when we're going to reopen any of these restaurants, if at all, whenever. So I'm purely looking at that, and I would suggest this gentleman that one, do something creative to keep your mind focused on doing something positive and creative, rather than, because there's so much information on the same subject and everything just seems to be more and more and more negative, and that bears your mindset, and kind of you lose confidence. And today, if you don't have confidence, what is there left for us? We lost money, we lost businesses, and we're only going to lose more and more. So we should not lose confidence in ourselves. We definitely should not stop being creative, and look within and see what your strengths are, and try and do something with that. And in the hills, there's so many opportunities. Get into farming, get into vegetable patches, maybe connect with somebody who can buy those and create a situation out of it, be it bottled or canned products. I'm also looking at those options, by the way.
Great.
So I think I am gonna just make a quick point here. Because this is something we've also, the same question I think we had to ourselves initially, early April. We had this question that there was so much workforce which was back in the city, and what to do with all the chefs. So I think our corporate chef Aman, that time came up with an amazing idea. So he started making people multitask. So we run Imli across the city and NCR. So we had situation wherein Imli serves you street food across the country. In addition to that, we also serve you some South Indian. We serve you Chinese. We serve you basically Desi Chinese that you call Chinjabi. We serve you pizza, pasta. So chef came up with this amazing idea. He started training people. He started telling a Chinese guy to cook an Indian meal and a chart guy to start learning on South Indian. So I think that multitasking bit really helped us. And now we started our kitchen last month for deliveries. We actually have a situation of 8 chefs working in the kitchen compared to 18 or 20 in the earlier days. So I think this sort of, so what I call necessity as the mother of invention, probably this time that we have in our hand, and then the gentleman who asked the question is obviously is down there in the hills. His entire season is gone because, this is the best time for anyone to travel. So I think he could look at next 4 to 5 months as the period for multitasking, make people learn jobs, switch them here and out. A server could go behind the bar, learn a little bit of bartending, so multitasking is our way of basically how we dealt with this entire situation in the last 2 months.
So true, Varun. We'll take just one last question, which is come on Facebook by Mr. Neeraj Gupta, and I will ask on behalf of him. His question is, alcohol sanitizer is risky for kitchen. What to do? Raymond, would you like to answer that?
Well, there's a lot of things risky in the kitchen, including hot oil. I think it just I think standard restaurant protocols involve keeping all your hygiene items away from the kitchen, okay, in a separate cupboard in a shelf. Right? Packaging is also supposed to be kept away from any kind of fire, right? Because they're highly inflammable items. And I think washing hands is probably more effective than the alcohol sanitizer, and that is more a stopgap when you do not have access to soap and water. I think the 30-minute rule of washing with an alarm going off in a kitchen is better and safer than having alcohol sanitizers around. So
right, great. So thank you for that answer, and I think over to you, Pritima. Thank you, panelists, for all the knowledge shared, and all look forward for reopening our industry and getting back soon on our finger crossed.
With fingers crossed, we're waiting for that.
Yeah. Over to you, Pritima.
Thank you, insightful participants. Thank you, Mr. Ame Matre, for moderating this session fantastically. With restaurants contributing to almost 2% of GDP and second largest after agriculture, the sector has got hugely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And today we sit here on World Food Safety Day. Restaurants are now all geared up to open tomorrow. Restaurants are fully sanitized, maintaining all SOPs to open, but they have to bring confidence in the customers, maintaining the best practices. restaurants need to assure the customers. With supply chain as a major challenge, there's a huge shift how people are consuming food these days. In cities like Mumbai, Chennai, people are more comfortable with online deliveries as they're still apprehensive of going to the restaurant. With all this in mind, let's hope for a brighter tomorrow. Thank you all the panelists and the delegates for joining us here today. We wish to see you again in the near future and hopefully offline and not in the confines of our homes. Stay healthy, stay safe everyone. Let's fight this virus together. We also have a short survey link requesting all attendees to fill this for us to get some relevant feedback on this webinar. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.